Okay, so to build our API, we need some data. So what I have done is I have collected some data for some local Costa stores in the area of London, and I will build out a new API on my local host, which I can then map through and render the content of my API onto this locations page. So if I go onto Next.js website, and go on to the API routes, it does give me an in-depth overview of what I do to implement the API. All I want to do is make GET requests for now. So what I will do is I will copy this handler function, and what that does is it will print out the name of John Doe on there. So we will test this out now. What we need to do is create a folder first of all. So within the pages folder, I'm going to create a new folder called API. So if I just close everything down, and in my pages folder, create a new folder called API and paste. Now what I want this API to be known as is store.js. So I will create a new file and call it store.js. And in here, I will paste the function copied. Now, if I save this, I should be able to access the name of John Doe as an object on my API. So if I go on to my local host /API /store, I now have access to this object, which gives me the key and value. So now what I want to do is I want to build out an array of objects within here that maps through all of the locations, and then I can map through that and print it out onto my page. So I have gone to the trouble of already doing this. So I will just copy my API across and paste it in my store.js file like so. So I have a list of 10 different locations on here. They have the name, address, an ID, a latitude and longitude. That's what we would need to get out the data and print it out for the map, the time, the delivery, and the click and collect. So now that I have this data, I am going to fetch the data from my server as opposed to my client side, so from the browser, have the data pre-fetched before I even enter the page and before the browser loads the page, and then I can map the data accordingly. This in turn will help with SEO, and it makes the user journey and user experience much better and faster. Okay, so now that I have my data set up, I'm just going to save everything. So this API of store should now update if I press the refresh button. I now have an array of objects with all my locations on there for my Costa stores. So what I need to do is render this out onto the page. So if I go into my location.js file now, I am going to use the server side props to get my data on the server side. So get server side props. So what will happen is it will server side render my component from any page. So I will use get server side props as stated. So if you export a function called get server side props from a page, so in this case the location page, Next.js will pre-render this page on each request using the data returned by the server-side props. It basically means that it will only fetch the data on my location.js page. So if I just copy this async function across, and I will just add it just after my default export. So I now will have access to a context object over here. So what I want to do is I want to define and fetch my store results. So I will use the await fetch method. So if I declare my fetch as store result, which is equal to await fetch, and then I pass in my API. So if I copy this and paste that in like so, and then what I want to do is I want to chain a dot then onto here, and I will get a response object back. And what I want to do with the response is I want to pass it into a JSON format like so. So then once I have done that, I have my store results now. So in this props, as stated, will be passed to the page component as props. So like we've done previously, within my props, I just want to pass my store results like so. So because I have prefetched the data from the server side, my client side page now should have access to this store results object in here. So all I need to do is destructure the store results within there. And if I just console.log my store results, I should see an object within my console that I am getting the correct results through. So if I go to /location like so, and then I open my console, I have an array of 10 objects which have within each object an address, an ID, a latitude, longitude, the name, and times. Now, all I need to do is render that out onto the page. And starting off with the map component, we will build a map and we will ensure this data is plotted onto our map. So we will do that in the next video.